Hey everyone, this is John from WorkshopAddict.com. Today we're going to do a quick and easy project. We are going to make one of these raised dog bowl tables, pet feeding stations, whatever you want to call them. Super easy to make. You can make it in a weekend, no problem. So stick around and see how it's done. Alright, the very first thing we need to do for our project is find the center for each hole we're going to cut for the bowls. What I have here is a 22.5 inch top, and that's consistent with what I've made before. So we're going to find 11.25 to find the center. Find 11.25. And what we're going to do is draw a line down the center. As soon as I can find my marks. There's the center of our board. Now what we're going to do is find the center of each halves. So we'll take corner to corner here, 45. And this will tell us where the center of our bowl is going to be. And this is going to evenly space out our bowls. Now that we found the center of our circles from where our bowls are going to be housed, now we need to figure out how big our holes are going to be. The bowl that I'm using has about a 1/4 inch lip on each side, almost a 1/2 inch lip on each side. From edge to edge, it's 7.5 inches. So for that, I need to cut a 7.5 inch hole on each side. And you can do that easily two different ways. If you don't have, what I'm going to use is use my router with a circle hole jig, homemade. If you don't have that, then you could go ahead and use a jigsaw. Either one works. Your router is going to give you a nicer looking hole. So what you need to do there is take your router and take half of 7.5, which is 3 3/4, measure from the outside of your blade, and when you get over to 3 3/4, I'm using a finish nail through the hole, and that will go right directly in the center of the circle. One thing I should mention, if you are going to use a router to cut all the way through, make sure you put a waste board underneath of it so you don't cut your work surface. My next step is to cut the legs. And right now I have 4 pieces of 1.5 by 1.5 oak. And I cut them all to 10 inches. I'm going to make this table, the legs about 9 inches tall for a medium-sized dog. If you've got a small dog, cut them smaller. If you've got a real tall dog, you're going to want to make your legs bigger. But what I did is I taped them all together so I can get a nice, clean, flush cut on the first one. Then I'll turn it over and I will cut at the 9 inches mark on the back side. The next cuts I need to make are for the apron pieces. I need 2 at 18 inches and 2 at 6 3/4. Now we're on to the part of woodworking everybody enjoys best, the sanding. It's best to sand this while we're all into pieces, and it'll just give you the best results. Now that the sanding's done, we're going to move on to the fun stuff. What we're going to do now is take the apron and attach them to the legs, and after we're done with that, we're going to attach all of this to the top. Now there's all kinds of different ways you can do this. What I've chosen to do is I'm going to use a biscuit cutter and cut biscuits to put the aprons to the legs. After that, I'm going to use a pocket hole jig and take the whole system and put it to the tabletop. Now you can do it a ton of different ways. You can do biscuits for the whole thing. You can do pocket holes for the whole thing. You can use dowel rods. You can use glue and screws if you want. But this works really simple for me and I love it. First off, we need to find the center of each one of the aprons. So I know that it's 2.5 inches, so 1 1/4. It's going to mark, I'm going to go ahead and mark the midway point. And that way, that's where I'm going to cut my biscuit in at. Now it's time to mark our legs for the biscuits. And what you need to do is, basically our apron is going to be set up like this. So we need to make marks on this back side and on this side. We're going to come down 1 1/4 inches on both of those sides and make a mark. And this is where we're going to make our biscuit cuts at. So we got to go on this side. Make sure you don't cut the wrong sides on this or mark the wrong sides, because it'll ruin the leg. So do that for all 4 legs and we'll be ready to cut with biscuits. All right, we're ready to cut our biscuits because we found our center line here. What I've done is I've taken my biscuit cutter and I've set it up to this mark, which is the center of a 3/4 inch piece of wood. This is important because we're going to make an adjustment when we do the legs. So we line it up with the red line on the biscuit joiner and we go ahead and cut our biscuit. Nice biscuit slot. Let's flip it over and catch the other side. Complete this for every section of apron. Now that we're ready to do the legs, I'd mentioned we're going to make an adjustment on the biscuit joiner. And what we're going to do is we're going to raise this guide up just a hair. And the reason for that is if we do it the way it is right now and leave it the same, everything's going to be butted up evenly. And usually in a project like this, it looks a little cleaner as if you can get a slight offset where all your pieces join. So what we're going to do, like I said, is loosen this, and we are going to move this guide up. We'll take it 1.5 slots up. So now when we cut our biscuits, we find our mark again, line up, and now we've cut a slot here, and we need to cut a slot on the other side, so you're going to have to flip it here. So now this is going to give us the offset we need. Now that we have all of our biscuit slots cut, we are going to assemble the short end of the aprons first and then come back and do the long sections later. So first what we need to do is put some glue in each one of the slots for the ends. Don't fill it up with too much glue, because if you get a lot of squeeze out, you're going to have to sand, and then next to the aprons you'll have to sand by hand. So what I'm using is a number 0 biscuit. They come in different sizes, but a number 0 is what we're using here. Go ahead and place it. And now what we're going to do is line up the marks that we created with the legs and the apron, and that'll give you flush at the top. You can move it around a little bit and just make sure that it's all square. All right, we're all lined up. Top and bottom are even. And you can see, hopefully you can see by this, that there's a slight offset with this apron and the legs, which gives it a kind of a nice look. And now we are going to clamp her up. We're going to clamp this up and wait for it to dry, and we will do the same thing with the other set of legs. Now that we have the short sides all glued up and out of the clamps, now it's time to put the longer parts of the apron together. Same thing we're going to do here. Just going to add a little glue to the slot. Spread it around in there a little bit. We are going to line up all of our biscuits and slots and clamp them up and let them sit again. I like to turn them back over and check to make sure that everything is flush up top here and even. This way the top will fit on it really nice. At this point I have to apologize. Before we put the apron to the legs, we should have screwed some pocket holes. And what I did was I was able to screw pocket holes on the side here, but not very well because this distance isn't enough to clamp the handle. So I basically had to use the Craig jig and a quick trigger clamp. But we're going to put a couple pocket holes on the end also. So I'm going to pull my pocket hole jig in. Pardon me, got to make sure that I set my pocket holes on the inside. This will be much easier to do before you put it together. Well, there's not a lot of stress and strain on this dog bowl dish, or dog bowl table, so you don't have to have a ton of pocket holes. Now is a good time, if you haven't, go ahead and sand off any marks that you would have had on your boards here or any squeeze out from your glue. Next, we're going to put the top on. Now we're ready to marry our legs and apron to the top of the table. These two holes that I have done are basically the same size as the top of this apron. So centering this is very easy. There's really no need for measurements. You can if you want it to make it perfect, but you could come within a 1/16 of an inch or so by eyeballing it. Once you have it lined up, time to start putting in some pocket hole screws. Now that your top is attached and everything's sanded the way you want it, it's time to put our finish on. Some people are going to paint these. I'm going to go ahead with a traditional stain and polyurethane finish. So now comes the easy stuff. Now we're going to let this sit for a while, wipe it off, and if we need to, put a second coat on. Well, I've let the stain dry for a full day, and now I'm going to get ready to put on the first of many layers of wipe-on polyurethane finish. And you can buy some of those wipe-on polyurethanes at the store. It works pretty good. It's still a little thick for me. If I had it, I'd thin it out a little bit. So what I do is I make my own, and basically I get some polyurethane, either semi-gloss, usually semi-gloss, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it 50-50 with mineral spirits. And it doesn't have to be exact. Like I said, the ones at the store, that you can buy, I think, are a little too thick. So the whole purpose of this is when you put on the polyurethane, the mineral spirits thins it out. What happens is your polyurethane gets on there, your mineral spirits evaporates quickly, leaving the polyurethane there in place. If you use this full strength like I used to do, in a project like this, you might wipe it on with a foam brush and you'll get runs or streaks if you're not careful. With this, it's super simple, but the key to this is a lint-free rag. If you try this with any other kind of rag, you will have little fuzzes left behind. So make sure you have a lint-free rag. Now, a couple things I wanted to tell you about this wipe-on finish. It is going to take several more coats because it goes on so thin. But the nice thing is, after about every second coat, I go ahead and sand it with about 220, then 400, then 600. Even if you wanted to go up to 1,000 or 1,200 grit, when you're done, after about 6 to 8 coats, it's going to look like glass. Now, I said there was a lot of coats, but after about the second or third coat, you can put it on, and then about 2 hours later, you can do the sanding. So it's not like it takes a real long time. All that mineral spirits evaporate real quick, and you can move on to the next coat. So it goes pretty quick. I think the second coat, usually when I do it's usually tacky. So 4 or 5 into it, you're really good. So try that out. So here's our final product. I have about 16 coats of wipe-on polyurethane on here, and everything works out really nice. Your dog bowl comes out so you can get them clean, and it's just a very nice solid table. We've been using one of these now for about the last 6 or 7 years, and it works great with our dog. So give it a try. Leave us a comment in the bottom. Ask any questions you might have. I'm more than welcome to help you out. Stop over at our forum. Let's talk some tools, some projects. Share your projects with us. We love seeing projects. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stop over at Facebook. Whatever it takes. We're all over social media, and say hi to us. And until next time, I'm John from WorkshopAddict.com. Talk to you later.